Hello guys, my name is Saddam Hussein. Welcome to my new channel Cbse Board Economics. In each video, we will be presenting 5 questions. So this is the first video. So we'll be starting with macroeconomics. In macroeconomics, the first chapter is Introduction to Macroeconomics. In this chapter, we'll be talking about 5 topics or 5 questions. Number 1, what is microeconomics? Number 2, what is macroeconomics? Number 3, differentiate between microeconomics and macroeconomics. And number 4, give a few examples of microeconomics. And 5, give a few examples of macroeconomics. And the last one, we'll be talking about some of the board questions that came from this chapter. If you are preparing from the board's point of view, I'll give you the marks. This question probably carries 1 mark. What is microeconomics? Here you are supposed to write a single sentence. And what is macroeconomics? This also carries 1 mark where you are supposed to write 1 single sentence. For 1 line answers, 1 mark are given in the board exams. For 1 mark questions, they don't expect you to write too big an answer. And differentiate between microeconomics and macroeconomics, probably this topic or this question can come for 3 or 4 marks where you are supposed to write 3 very important points or 3 differences or 4 differences. Not too many, the most important one. And then they can ask you some questions. Give an example of macroeconomics. You just have to write 1 example. It carries 1 mark. Give an example of macroeconomics. Again, 1 example. That's more than enough. And as usual, we'll be discussing the board questions. Let's begin. The first one you have, what is microeconomics? As I told you that in this question, you are supposed to write 1 single sentence. You are not expected to write more than 1 single sentence. What is microeconomics? The most appropriate sentence will be microeconomics deals with single economic variables. What it means? It deals with the demand of a consumer, the supply of a producer, the consumption of one consumer, maybe the income of a household or income of a person. And what is macroeconomics? Here also you are supposed to write 1 single sentence, not expected to write more than that. Macroeconomics deals with the aggregates of the economy. What do you mean by aggregates? Aggregate means totals. Same examples we carry forward what we have taken in macroeconomics. In macroeconomics, we have seen the demand of a consumer. In macroeconomics, the same example becomes aggregate demand for the whole economy. Here we have seen income of an individual. Here we talk about the national income, GDP, NDP, NNP, GNP. Here we discussed the supply of one firm or maybe an industry. Here we talk about aggregate supply, the total supply in the economy. That's more than enough. Now we go bit details about micro and macroeconomics. Sometimes they ask you differentiate between microeconomics and macroeconomics. If they ask you a question, differentiate between micro and macroeconomics, you are supposed to make a table and write 3 or 4 points with definitely 1 example. Now let's talk about it. I won't put the differentiation here. Maybe I'll provide you the notes later. What is the difference between micro and macroeconomics? Already we have seen one point. What is microeconomics? What is macroeconomics? That we can put it here. So I'll give you one point first. The first point is the word microeconomics has been derived from the Greek word micros, which means small. The word macroeconomics has been derived from another Greek word which means big, huge. And second point, microeconomics deals with individual economic variables, and second point of macroeconomics deals with the aggregates of the economic system. The third point, microeconomics is also called as price theory, and macroeconomics is called as income and employment theory. It deals with the aggregates of the economy. In microeconomics, the most important variables are demand and supply. In macroeconomics, the most important variables are aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Microeconomics basically deals with the allocation of resources. What do you mean by allocation of resources? If your mom gives you a pocket money of 100, 200 rupees, you know best how to allocate it, how much you have to spend it on books, how much you have to spend it for your friends, how much you have to spend that money in buying books and other stationery for you. Macroeconomics, I told you, it deals with allocation micro, and macroeconomics deals with the not allocation of resources, it deals with the growth of resources, how we can grow the economy, how the GDP we can grow, all these things. So I repeat once again, the word microeconomics has been derived from a Greek word micros, which means small. The word macroeconomics is derived from another Greek word which means large. Microeconomics is called price theory, macroeconomics is called income and employment theory. Microeconomics deals with the location of resources, macroeconomics deals with the growth of resources. In microeconomics, the most important variables are demand and supply. In macroeconomics, the most important variables are aggregate demand and aggregate supply. And now we go to the next topic, right? Give, in case they ask you a few examples of microeconomics, I'll give you 10-15 examples. So you memorize maybe 2-3 examples, that is more than enough. So the first example of microeconomics, I told you the demand of a consumer. The second example is supply of a firm or maybe an industry. The third example is how much money you spend on consumption. I told you already, the income of an individual or a household. And then you have anything to do with the individuals, the consumption of an individual, the supply of an individual firm, the demand of an individual, how much a student spends money on stationery, any of these individuals or households. And a few examples of macroeconomics already we discussed, most important, remember 2-3 deals with the aggregates of the economy. These aggregates can be aggregate demand, aggregate supply, national income, GDP, GNP, NNP, the total employment in the economy, unemployment. So it includes all those things in macroeconomics. Now we come to the questions that have come in the board exams. The typical, I'm not discussing those questions which are too simple to answer, like what is microeconomics, what is macroeconomics, give an example of microeconomics, an example of macroeconomics. So these are too simple. Now I'm discussing some typical example. See, I don't remember, one of the years they asked you a question, is unemployment a micro or macro economics? The simple answer, think logically, unemployment does not deal with individual households. We talk from the economist's point of view. Unemployment is a macro concept because it deals with the economy as a whole. Then they asked you once in the board exam, is the study of iron industry a microeconomics or macroeconomics? Just one industry does not constitute the whole economy. You just have to write it is microeconomic concept because it deals with just one single industry. Same way they asked you in some of the sets, is study of iron and steel industry, or study of a sugar industry, study of car industry, macro. You just have to write. These are all examples of microeconomics because they are not dealing with the whole economy as a whole. It is just discussing about one firm or one industry. One of the times they asked you, one of the board exams, depression in the economy or recession in the economy, micro or macro, you just have to write depression, recession, business cycles, unemployment, exports, imports, budget. These all macro subjects. They deal with the economy as a whole. That's all we have in this chapter. It's easy to do, easy to remember. If you remember these 5 questions, I'm sure you will be able to crack it. So simply, for your sake, I repeat once again, the macroeconomics. This is chapter 1. In chapter 1, we will be talking about 5 topics. What is microeconomics? What is macroeconomics? Differentiate between micro and macroeconomics. Give a few examples of microeconomics. Give a few examples of macroeconomics. And then you have the board exams. So once again, we do the revision, it becomes easier for you to learn what is microeconomics. It's too simple. By this time, I'm sure you must have learned it. Just write this much, not even a single sentence extra. Microeconomics is the study of individual economic variables. Microeconomics is the study of individual economic variables. For example, demand of a consumer, supply of a firm. Easy to remember. Next, what is macroeconomics? Single sentence, don't write more than this. Macroeconomics deals with the aggregates of the economic system. It deals with the economy as a whole. For example, aggregate demand, aggregate supply, national income, GDP, GNP, NNP. All these are macroeconomic concepts. Differentiate between microeconomics and macroeconomics. I repeat once again, make a proper table and now differentiate. The first point, the word microeconomics has been derived from the Greek word called micros, which means small. The word macroeconomics has been derived from another Greek word which means large. Macroeconomics is study of individual economic variables. This is the second point. Macroeconomics is study of the economy as a whole. The third point, microeconomics is called price theory and macroeconomics is called income and employment theory. The fourth point, in microeconomics mostly deals with the allocation of resources. Macroeconomics deals with the aggregates of the economic system. It deals with the growth of the resources, how we can grow the economy, how we can grow the GDP, GNP, NNP, national income. And please write some examples. In microeconomics, demand of a consumer, supply of a firm. In macroeconomics, aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Then we already discussed some of the board questions. In case they ask you any question which you feel typically which is related to the economy, it can be population of the country, it can be birth rate, it can be death rate, it can be unemployment, it can be food problem, it can be unemployment problem, it can be full employment, it can be underemployment. All these are macro concepts. I'm 100% sure you must have followed all the topics. So please do subscribe to this channel, share with your friends and wait for my next video. I'm sure you must have followed it. Thank you guys for watching. Goodbye and best of luck for your exams. Goodbye.